Today I'm going to attempt to repair this large dent on the back of this 1953 Chevy cab. Let's survey the damage. So have some previous damage through here and possibly another previous dent there. Looks like the impact was somewhere through the middle here, quite violently pushed in there. Just to show you how pushed in it is for scale, I put the new cab corner on and set it over top, and you can see that it is in quite a bit there. So all of that needs to be roughed out before I can install this cab corner. So you don't want any damage in the panel before we weld this in. Otherwise, it's going to cause a lot of issues for us. We also potentially have some secondary damage on this edge here from this being pushed in. I say potentially because it's normal on these trucks for the gap to kind of get weird and tight towards the bottom. These were just the way they were made. They weren't super accurate, but the gap is larger up here, and then it progressively gets tighter, and it's at its tightest point right where this is pushed in. So this could very well be caused by this being punched in. So again, we want to relieve the stress on that before we worry about this too much. We'll see when we rough this out whether or not this comes back with it, or you know, this could have been here since 1953, but we always want to relieve all the damage before we get too concerned with anything else. And if you look at the back of this cab, I don't know if you can see that on camera, but this impact here has caused the entire surface from about here down to roll inwards, and it should be more outwards. So this is our primary damage here. By primary, I mean that is where your point of impact is, and then everything else related to that is going to be the secondary damage, because anytime there's an impact or collision or whatever, that damage impacts here, and then the damage keeps traveling through the vehicle until all of that energy from the initial impact is absorbed. So if you ever watch those crash test videos, when you see a vehicle impact, watch the car in slow motion, and you can actually literally see that damage traveling throughout the car all the way to the taillights. So it's never just concentrated in one area. That damage just keeps going, like I said, until all of that energy is absorbed. I have to apologize for the sound of the heater. It's currently minus 40 out with the wind chill. That's Celsius, but for our American friends, minus 40 Celsius is also the same as minus 40 Fahrenheit. And if you've never experienced that, it's horrifically cold. If you've been there, you know why the heater's on. If you don't, it's going to be running on and off through this whole video. Because if I freeze to death, you won't be able to watch this painfully misleading video. Something like this, I want to kind of start out with the least aggressive methods, but I don't want to just take out my 10-pound sledge and just start wailing on this, because then I'm just going to be putting in more damage. The idea is to put in not more damage. We're trying to fix it. So in this case, I'm just going to start out with a rubber mallet. You can use a wooden mallet or whatever. In my last dent repair video, I think we fixed a similar dent to this in a fender. Someone was saying I should have used a porta power. I try to avoid using a porta power in situations like this, because in order to use the porta power, you have a base end and then you have your ram on one end, and you have to put that end on something else, another surface inside the vehicle. So by putting it on another surface, you're running the risk of damaging that surface as well while you're trying to remove this. So we don't want to, again, be putting more damage into the vehicle somewhere else when we don't have to. We only want to correct this damage. We're not trying to straighten out a door frame or anything like that. So just going to use this rubber mallet here. I'm going to kind of start in here. This is kind of where it's it's kind of bunched up and knotted up. This is where the most tension is. I think once I start getting this out, a lot of the rest of this will come out. See, by just doing that, we've now removed a massive amount of the damage. We still have this unrelated dent here, which is kind of a bit of a crease. See that? And then we have this unrelated dent. This would have happened before the main damage. And then here we have still pretty knotted up through our point of impact there. And then we also have a light ridge. You can see that there, where the perimeter of the dent was. So we'll have to do some work there. And if we take a look at our door gap here, you can see that it has actually widened up here now. Before it was very, very tight all through here, and now it's opened up to the same as what it was on the bottom. So I was correct about this being secondary damage. And if we also look at the back of the cab now, remember how this was in like this now because of all this being sucked in? Well, we've now relieved all of that, and other than this unrelated dent here, all of this damage is now gone. There's not even any sign of a ridge or anything where it was. It was all just caused by this being knotted in. It had pulled in the whole back of this cab. With just a few hits with our rubber mallet, we've relieved a large portion of the damage without putting in any additional damage. So that's very good, but we still have a ton of work left to do to get this thing ironed out a little better. Just get another perspective on the damage there. You can see we're still got quite a bit of mess in here. Here's our previous dent there, and our previous dent here. Another ding on top of there. Well, that's as far as we're going to take it. We have roughed out the majority of the damage. I apologize for not showing me stripping the paint off of this. I was just trying to hide the fact that I'm actually a horribly underskilled amateur because I use cheap tools. Now I have to give credit to a fellow YouTuber that goes by the name of It's Rough One for setting me straight. He left me a very helpful comment on my video where I replaced this cab corner. He let me know that because I was using cheap tools on my cab corner installation, that my fender was going to fail very quickly. Now, at first I thought he was just some sad, lonely deadbeat living in his mother's basement who gets his kicks out of spouting nonsense on the internet and taking his frustration out on others because he's never achieved anything in life. But then I went outside to check on my fenders, and I was shocked and appalled to discover that my fender had failed. So even though I'm an amateur wannabe and my primary intention on YouTube is to just trick others and mislead them into performing low quality repairs on their vehicles, the one thing that I would absolutely hate to have happen is somebody's fenders to fail because they used cheap tools on their cab corners. So please sell everything, take out a second mortgage, and buy every snap-on tool that you can. And while you're at it, don't forget the Bailey power hammer and whatever else you feel like wasting your money on, because the last thing you want, believe me, is to have your fenders fail. The panel is now returned to its original dimensions and shape. The door gap has now opened up quite nicely. All very nice and consistent now through here, especially for a 70-year-old farm truck. Can't really ask for much more than that. The shape of the back of the cab through here is now, again, returned to its original shape, just as we would want it to be. There's no oil cans or any of that type of thing going on in the panel. It's all very tight. It's all relaxed. If you're familiar with these trucks, you know that these back panels, if there's even the slightest dent in them, it can cause the whole back of the cab to want to oil can in and out, and we have none of that. This is all very tight, so we know that we've returned this back to its original dimensions, and we're not, that being said, this is not metal finished. There are still lots of minor surface abrasions, but we have, like I said, at the very least 90% of the damage out. There's no ridges, there's no creases, none of that. We're trying to get the metal, the shape back into it. We're not metal finishing it because we've already reserved ourselves to the fact that we're going to be doing body work here, because I'm going to be MIG welding on this cab corner. So that requires body work no matter what you do if you're MIG welding it. So we could always TIG weld it and make it all beautiful, but this isn't the truck for that. This truck, well, Speaking of cab corners, look at how much nicer it fits the back of the cab now, that there's not a huge dent there. Now, I'm not using this whole cab corner, but we still want this metal to be back to where it was. We can't have any stress or damage in this panel before welding on it, because as soon as we go to weld on it, if there's still damage or stress in this panel, that damage and stress is going to be locked into place. The heat from the welding is going to cause it to rear its ugly head, and you'll weld this all nicely and think you did a real nice job, and then it'll just like suck this whole thing in again and do all kinds of weird stuff, and you'll think it was warped by the welding, and then you'll be trying to planish out the welds, and then it'll just start oil canning and making a mess. And in reality, there's only a small fraction of distortion from the weld shrinking, and the rest of the damage is caused by this previous damage that was literally welded into the panel. And once it's welded in, then it's locked in, and it becomes very difficult, if not impossible, to actually correct that damage back to the original dimensions. And then out comes the fiberglass and the body filler and everything else, and then you're sculpting half the back of the cab, and it's just so much easier to get the dimensions back into the panel, get the stress out of it, and then weld. You saw in the video there, this all came out very quickly. It took me longer to set up the cameras and what have you than to actually get the damage out. So It's time well spent, I think. And you know, I actually thought this was going to put up more of a fight, but what's going to really put up a fight is now I have to edit all of this into a video. Well, it's just a short one this week. This one's basically categorized as one of those inspirational things, not a how-to necessarily. If you're new here, I have several dent repair videos on the channel already where they go into more detail. I think probably one of the more detailed ones is the how to fix a dent the fast, cheap, and easy way. But you can go through the older videos and find them. There's usually, I try to put a few tidbits of information every time we fix a dent, but I don't want to keep repeating the same information over and over again, even though despite my best efforts to scare people away, we keep getting more and more viewers on the channel. But, you know, once the videos are out there, they can be referenced. You can go back and reference them and watch them, because it's not really a good use of your time for me to keep repeating myself over and over again, and it's not a good use of my time, because it takes, every time I have to explain something, it just adds so much time to the actual project, which, you know, we're trying to get things done while putting out content. And the other thing to learning as well is just actually taking that knowledge or the tips or whatever and then actually applying them to whatever you're working on. You'll learn a lot more from half hour in the garage banging on dented fender or hood or welding on some scrap metal than you would watching 30 hours of my videos. But that doesn't mean you should stop watching 30 hours of my videos. Please watch all of them again and again, because it helps bring in that sweet tens of dollars a month in ad revenue, which helps me to support my glue snipping addiction. But we're getting sidetracked again. Anyways, yeah, about that practical application. Nobody's ever automatically good at it. Anything, it does obviously take some practice. So, like I said, you know, I would encourage everyone to go out to the garage, sneak out there if you have to for 30 minutes every night, and just practice banging on a dented piece of metal or welding on some scraps or whatever it is you're trying to achieve. Just practice that every day for half hour a day, and you'll be pretty amazed at what you can do. A lot of this is just what works for me personally. So you may find with a little practice that you have a better way or a different way that works for you better, and there's nothing wrong with that. You can obviously use this, what I'm doing, as kind of a guideline, but don't necessarily take it right to heart and try and just, you know, you read the book or watch for the video or whatever, and then go out to the garage and just automatically, you know, follow that step by step. You know, feel free to play around and find out what works best for you. Another little story from the old personal life of Kyle is since I was a young lad, I've always had the dream of being a professional triangle player, and I read all the books on playing a triangle. I've watched all the videos on YouTube there, and just filled my head with as much knowledge as I could on playing the triangle. But the reality is I've never actually played a triangle. And when I went to try out for lead triangle player in the New York Philharmonic there, they basically just laughed me out of the audition. Wouldn't even give me a second chance or anything like that. You know, just because I don't play the triangle or even own a triangle, you know, I at least have the decency to show me some respect and give me a chance, you know. Anyways, I hope that little pep talk inspires you to get out in the garage, because that's kind of what this is all about. That being said, those of you who are watching for entertainment, well, thanks for watching either way. Just out of curiosity, let me know in the comments if you're working on a project and if some of this is helpful. I've heard from a lot of you that whatever I'm doing apparently is. So let me know what you're working on in the comment section, or let me know if you're just watching because you want to watch an idiot Canadian screw up old trucks. That's fine too. You're all welcome to watch. Don't bother me none. Anyway, sorry for rambling off again. huge thank you to everyone for watching again. And thank you and welcome to all the new subscribers. Thank you to all the old subscribers, the unsubscribers, the dislikers, the likers, and so on. Also, thank you to all the super chatters and super thankers. You guys are all super. And as always, big thank you to all of our patrons. I don't know what I did to deserve all your support, but I sure do appreciate it. And hopefully you like these videos that I've been making for you, and you're not totally disappointed. But again, thanks everyone, and we'll see you again soon.